Let me have my share of the education. Dami hesitated, his mind racing, but he knew he had no choice. Marco's threat hung in the air like a storm cloud, ready to burst. Finally, he nodded. Fine, he said, his voice bitter, but keep your mouth shut. And just like that, their twisted partnership began. The next time Dami called a girl into his room, Marco waited in the shadows. When Dami was done, he sent the girl to Marco, saying, Go to my friend Marco. He'll teach you something else. Marco, always ready, welcomed them with open arms. You're safe with me, he would say, his words dripping with deceit. Together, they formed a pact, each man feeding off the other's wickedness. But the shadows they cast grew darker with each passing day, and though they thought their secret was safe, the truth was like smoke. It could not be hidden forever. It started with Aduni, one of the brightest girls in the village. She was always the first to answer Dami's questions and the last to leave class. After one of Dami's private lessons, Aduni began to feel strange. Her body felt heavy, and her stomach churned like a pot of boiling soup. At first, she brushed it off. It's nothing, she whispered to herself. Maybe it's the yam I ate this morning. But the nausea didn't go away. Day after day, she grew more tired, and her appetite disappeared like smoke in the wind. Aduni kept her troubles to herself. She was afraid to tell her mother, who was strict and wouldn't understand. If she knows, she'll beat me, Aduni thought, her heart pounding. Meanwhile, Dami continued as if nothing was wrong. His charming smile and smooth words masked the growing storm. He called the girls one by one, his web of deceit growing larger with each passing day. But the shadows were starting to shift. The girls' silence was like a dam holding back a flood. And soon, the cracks would begin to show. One warm evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, the girls gathered by the river to fetch water. They laughed and chatted, their voices mingling with the sound of the rushing stream. But Aduni, sitting quietly on a rock, seemed distant. Her friend, Morayo, noticed and asked, Aduni, are you okay? You've been so quiet these days. Aduni hesitated, her hands trembling. She looked at the other girls and said softly, I don't feel well. Ever since my private lesson with Mr. Dami, the other girls fell silent. Morayo's eyes widened and she whispered, He calls me for private lessons too. Aduni's head shot up. He does. One by one, the girls began to speak. He called me last week, one said, her voice shaky. Me too, another added. The realization hit them like a heavy stone. They weren't the only ones. Dami's words, his promises, and his actions were the same for all of them. Shame and fear filled the air, thick as a morning fog. What do we do? Morayo asked, her voice barely audible. We can't tell anyone, Aduni said quickly. Who would believe us? They'd blame us instead. The girls nodded, their hearts heavy with fear. They knew the truth, but their silence held them captive, each one carrying the weight of their secret alone. But the cracks in the dam were growing wider, and it was only a matter of time before the flood would break free. One quiet evening, Mama Aduni sat outside her hut, peeling cassava for dinner. From inside, she heard a sharp sound, Aduni retching again. Mama Aduni rushed in to find her daughter hunched over, holding her stomach. Aduni, are you sick? She asked, her voice full of worry. No, Mama, Aduni replied quickly, wiping her mouth. It's just the food. I'm fine. But Mama Aduni wasn't convinced. She noticed the way Aduni avoided her gaze and the tiredness in her movements. Elsewhere in the village, Mama Morayo was also growing suspicious. She noticed her daughter's clothes were getting tighter, and her once cheerful child now seemed quiet and withdrawn. Morayo, she asked one day, why don't you eat with us anymore? Are you hiding something? Mori shook her head, but her silence spoke louder than words. It wasn't long before other mothers began to see the same signs in their daughters. Vomiting, swollen faces, the sudden need to avoid questions. One by one, whispers turned into murmurs, and murmurs grew into alarm. The mothers gathered under the great Iroko tree, their faces heavy with worry. Something is wrong, Mama Aduni said, her voice trembling. Our daughters are not the same. Yes, Mama Morayo agreed. They hide their faces like criminals, and their bodies, they are changing. Baba Ajani, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. This is no coincidence, he said, his voice deep and steady. We must find the truth. Call the girls and ask them. If they know what's going on, they must speak. The villagers nodded in agreement. The time for silence had passed. That evening, the mothers and elders gathered their daughters under the mango tree. The air was heavy, and the stars above seemed dim. Speak, Baba Ajani commanded, his voice like a clap of thunder. What is troubling you? Why are you hiding from us? The girls looked at each other, their eyes filled with fear. None of them dared to speak, their secrets locked tightly in their hearts. But the parents were relentless. They questioned them one by one, their voices growing sharper with each denial. Finally, Aduni broke down, her tears falling like rain. It was Mr. Dami, she confessed, her voice shaking. He called us for private lessons and said it was to help us. But it wasn't true. He lied to us. Gasps filled the air. Mr. Dami? Mama Morayo whispered, her hands flying to her chest, as if Aduni's confession opened a floodgate. The other girls began to speak too. It's true, Morayo said, tears streaming down her face. He made us trust him, and then She couldn't finish her sentence. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. One of the girls, with trembling hands, added, it wasn't just him. He sent us to Mako too. He said Mako would continue the lessons. The crowd erupted in anger. The betrayal burned like fire in their hearts. Dami and Mako, Baba Ajani roared. They have ruined our daughters. The parents, now filled with rage, decided they wouldn't wait. They would confront Dami and Mako that very night. Bring torches, Baba Ajani ordered. We will go to Dami's house. He must face the consequences of his actions. The crowd moved as one, their anger lighting the dark night like a wildfire. Justice was coming and no one could escape it. Mako was lounging outside his hut, chewing on a stick, when he overheard two women talking near the well. The parents know, one of them whispered, her voice sharp like the crack of a whip. They're going to Dami's house tonight. He's finished. Mako's heart jumped. He spat out the stick and ran as fast as his legs could carry him to Dami's house. Bursting through the door, he found Dami calmly writing on a slate, unaware of the storm brewing outside. Dami, Mako panted, his chest heaving. They know. The parents are coming for you. They found out everything. Dami's hand froze and the color drained from his face. What do you mean, everything? I mean everything, Mako hissed. The girls have spoken. They know what we've done. For a moment, Dami stood frozen, his mind racing. Then, like a man drowning, he grabbed onto the first thought that came to him. We need to leave, he said quickly. Now. The two men hurriedly packed their belongings, shoving clothes and valuables into bags. We'll go to the town, Dami said, his voice trembling. No one will find us there. But what if the guards are watching? Mako asked, his eyes darting around nervously. They won't be expecting